Happy holidays, everyone. As the new year approaches, I know there's a lot of skepticism around the housing market. Some people have regrets for not buying or selling, some have regrets about buying or selling, and some are just hoping things will change and trying to figure out how to get out of the hole they feel like they're sinking in. So, today I'm going to spend some time in each camp to make sure you're prepared and have a game plan for buying or selling in 2022. I'm going to lay out a few potential scenarios as to how the housing market could unfold this year and some strategies to help you position yourself to take advantage of them as a buyer, seller, or investor. So stay tuned, that's coming up right now. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Rick Harrison with MVP Realty in Southwest Florida, and in today's housing market update for December 27th, 2021, I'm chalking up this week's local market slowdown to the holiday season and a common desire to enjoy some stability before the new year begins. So I'll quickly cover the local market updates and mortgage rate changes, then we'll look at some possible 2022 market conditions, and finally what you can do to position yourself to take advantage of each possible scenario. But first, if you haven't already done so, please make sure to subscribe and click that bell to get notified of my latest videos, bringing you everything you need to know about living, buying, and selling in Southwest Florida. All right, let's take a look at the local market. So for today's 7-day market update, we're taking a look from the comparison from last week to this week. As you can see, for new listings, we're down 44%. As I mentioned right in the beginning of the video, I'm kind of chalking this up to the holiday season. Everybody wants to wants to have the stability of the holiday season. So I think, this sizable decrease from 557 last week to 315 this week is just due to the holiday season and people wanting to, have a house and a place to stay, to hang out with friends and family. So even though 557 last week was a decrease already, down to 315, that's down another 44% this week. Like I said, that's just up to the holidays. So most of these market statistics for this week, I'm just chalking up to the fact that it's the holiday season, and I think they will go back up to what we were seeing previously in the last couple weeks. Still down a little bit, but I think they will be up higher than what they are this week over the holiday season. So solds are down 15% from 919 last week to 788 this week. That's good news. Unfortunately, I think it's just due to the holiday season. Extendeds are up 31%, so an additional 22 homes did go back onto the market that had expired. And then our pendings are also down 29%, which means that less people bought over the last 7 days. Again, just probably because everyone's getting ready for the holiday season and preparing for people to either preparing for travel to friends and family's houses or preparing for people to travel to their homes where they live this down here. Interest rates for 12/27. Nerd Wallet went from 2.994 last week to 3.074 this week. That's up a few percentage points. And then the exact opposite, bank rate had the average go from 3.24% last week to 3.19% this week. So as you can see, the rates have been hovering right around 3% this whole time, even despite the Fed's announcements that they will be starting to taper bonds. They haven't actually done that yet. They're still buying 120 to 150 billion dollars worth of bonds right now, as they had this over this past December. That's supposed to be changing going into January. They're supposed to be going down to 60 billion bond purchases instead of the 120 that we're at right now. But again, that's all up in the air. Even though Powell was hawkish over the last couple times he was presenting what the Fed was talking about in their meetings, the market itself is not reacting that way, and they are actually calling his bluff. They don't think he is going to raise the rates. They don't think that he can. But we'll have to see how that plays out in the next month or two, whether they actually do start to taper, and if they do end up tapering all the way down to nothing, if they actually do raise the interest rates, which will have an effect on the mortgage rates going into the new year. All right, so let's just get into the market scenarios. As I mentioned in the beginning, I want to make sure that everybody going into 2022 is prepared for the potential scenarios that the market could take going into the new year, and the potential ways that this could play out for buyers, sellers, and investors. let's start off with the housing market gets worse scenario, right? The first one, the traits of this kind of market would be the Fed probably does not increase rates. They might not even taper, or if they do taper, they don't actually increase after the taper is done. So in this scenario, the inventory would obviously continue to decrease as we've been seeing over the last 2 years. With decreasing inventory and the demand that is still there, and a lot of people who still want to buy, that would drive the prices up, which in turn would also affect the rental rates because as prices increase, less people can afford it. That means that those people who were looking to buy a home have to go back into the rentals, which now puts stress on the rental market, which means that the rental market could increase their prices and do so with no problem because people need places to live. So in this scenario, buyer's opportunity would decrease. Seller's opportunity at the same time, though, would decrease a bit as well, just because if you're selling your house, you're going to be entering into the same market as the buyers. So unless you are well off and have a ton of cash on hand, if you're looking to finance even a portion of your house, then you're going to be in the same boat as a lot of the buyers who have been sitting on the sidelines for the last year and a half or so. Scenario number two, the housing market slows down. So this is where most of the market is predicting things to go. I'm still not sure that that's going to be the case. I don't think that personally, I think it's gonna go the other way. I think it's gonna slow down, but I think it's gonna actually slow down to the point where we start to enter into a little bit of a recession. Now, don't base your situation or your decisions off of my personal, um, my personal feelings or what I've been analyzing, but definitely do your homework. I don't want you to wait and it doesn't come, but I do think that things have to change because, as I just said in the last scenario, even if the market stays on the trajectory that it is, those who want to sell or who have to sell and move, whether it's for job relocation or to be closer to family, whatever it may be, they're going to be entering into the same market. So they're not going to want to sell, or if they do have to sell, they're going to be going into the same type of market. So I think as a mass psychology, people are going to want this whole situation to change with the housing market. And I don't think it's a sustainable trajectory for the market right now. So if the housing market does slow down, the traits for this would be the Fed increases rates. So in that case, when rates increase, houses become less affordable, which lowers demand. Now, in that case, inventory would start to rise because there would be less demand. So when inventory rises, prices tend to go down. And in this case, I think we're going to see inventory start to increase a bit and prices start to decrease a bit, or at the very least, level out. In which case, the rental rates at the same point would be kind of it would be a null set really. It's not going to go up or down. I think the rental rates will end up staying the same, just because the inventory and prices, inventory would increase, prices would decrease. That means that the buyer's opportunity to buy would also increase slightly. So I think inventory is going to increase slightly, prices will decrease slightly, and the buyer opportunity will increase slightly as well. That would be good news, and that is what most of the real estate related companies, even the mortgage-based companies, are predicting for 2022. So that is good news. It is some good news. I know it's probably not the news that everybody was hoping for or is hoping for, but that is one of the more likely scenarios. The third option is the housing market shifts, where it starts to shift more towards a buyer's market, which that would be also probably due to the Fed increasing the rates. Once that happens, once the Fed increases the rates, it starts a domino effect. Increasing rates puts home purchases out of reach for many people, which lowers demand, and in turn, that lower demand will increase inventory. It'll drive down prices, and it will probably also start to drive down rental rates because more buyers are going to be able to pick and choose what types of homes they're looking at. There's going to be less competition in the market, which is good news. And I think this is probably, in my personal opinion, I think this is one of the most likely situations for 2022. And then the final one, which is the one at least buyers would probably be hoping for, is the housing market crashes. So this would be the scenario where the Fed increases the rates to try to combat inflation. And this would be, I think, in January, end of January, February, and even into March, we're going to start seeing the trajectory of what the Fed is going to be doing, whether they're actually going to be following through with what they said, which is tapering bonds, increasing rates up to 3 times next year. If they do that, they're looking at 0.25%. So a 3% mortgage would go up to 3.25%, then to 3.5, then to 3.75 by the end of 2022. And then going into 2023, they're looking to go into the 4% range at the 4.2% range, which where prices are right now for homes. If that does get to the 4% range, I think you're going to see the demand drop pretty drastically as far as people looking to buy homes. That means that rental rates probably will go up temporarily, but I think in the long run, we'll see that actually starts to correct the market a bit. We'll see the increase in prices drop quite a bit. The inventory would go through the roof most likely, just because there would be a lot less buyers out there. Prices would drop and decrease a bit, where it would become almost go from the extreme sellers market that we're in right now to the extreme buyers market, where people are struggling to actually sell their homes for what they wanted to. Rental rates would also probably decrease slightly. I don't think you'll see a huge drop in rental rates. I think that would just go down a little bit, and then the buyer's opportunity would go up as well, quite a bit. Now the buyers would be on the side where they're able to negotiate the best terms, and the sellers are the ones having to concede and give up things to those buyers. So those are the 4 scenarios that are possible. I think the most likely 2 are going to be that the market starts to shift in the direction of buyers, or that the market will start to cool off a bit, where we'll see slight growth, but not like we've seen the last year or 2. Then the least likely would be more so probably the housing market crash and the current trajectory of home prices and demand. I think those are the least likely. So just to go into the lead measures, the scoreboard, I have a lead measure scoreboard where I look up, I gather all the information around different markets and different industries, real estate groups, major investors, mainstream traders, swing traders, and even the bond market, just to see what each one of them is, what they're leaning towards as far as their predictions for the next year. When we look at the real estate groups, as I said, most of them are predicting slowed growth. So they are still predicting growth nonetheless, but it would be slowed. If you look at the major investors, they're on the complete opposite end, where a lot of the major investors, some of them, they call them doom and gloom or doomsdayers. Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Michael Burry, even Peter Schiff, and some of the other investors, Ray Dalio, even Warren Buffett, and a couple of his associates. They're more looking towards a potential crash. Now, I'm not saying that they are saying that there's going to be a crash, but they do think that there is some kind of correction in the near future, and they also have put their money where their mouth is. They've taken their money out of a lot of those stocks that they did have them invested while the market has been going up, and I think they're kind of waiting to see where things are going, but they are leaning more towards things are going to slow down quite a bit in the economy, and we're actually going to go into some type of a recession of some sort, or at the very least, a very slow economy with growth. Then we look at the mainstream traders. If anybody's been watching the stock market, you know that we did go through a little bit of a drop over the last week or 2, right before Christmas, and actually today, today and I believe it was Friday's markets, the futures are predicting increases in stock market prices. So I think that this more has to do with the Santa rally that everybody talks about towards the end of the year. The Santa rally, the stock market goes up. It's just kind of that sentiment of the holiday season, wanting to get as much as you can out of the year before you have to pay taxes on your gains. So mainstream traders are all looking at the market the way it is, as buy the dip. So that's kind of the phrase is, hey, if it goes down a little bit, buy it because it's going to go back up. But I think in the next week and a half, up to around January 7th or so, we're going to see the Santa rally continue. And then I think we're going to kind of get back to reality where, what's going on in the market, what's going on in the economy, what's going on in the global economy. And I think people are going to be looking at the markets, the charts as far as stocks go, and see that a lot of these markets are overvalued and stocks are overvalued. Like if you look at the S&P 500, even though it's showing gains on the year, if you take the top 5 stocks out of the S&P 500, which there's 500 stocks, right? You take the top 5 out, the S&P 500 has actually lost money over the year. So without those top 5, and you're looking at the big ones, Google, Apple, those types of stocks, when you take those out, the S&P 500 has actually lost momentum on the year. And I think if you look at where the market was headed before the pandemic, you'll also see that the economy started to look like it was slowing as well. And we had that you had a little dip in the market before the pandemic happened. And then once the pandemic happened, where the government started to pump trillions of dollars into the markets, and you had all these programs incentivizing people to be able to stay at home and not have to work. They're still getting money though without working. When you have that, now people have this influx of money. Hey, I can go out and spend money, and that's what's pumping up the market. Is that people have this huge influx of money over the last year and a half. They're able to spend, and we're actually spending more money right now than we are producing as an economy. So the GDP, if you look at the GDP, you can go to if you go on the web and just look up the current U.S. Spending, you'll see that the GDP is not showing. We're at 126% of our GDP, which means we're spending more than we're producing, which is not good for our economy. Then we look at the swing traders. Swing traders right now they're just saying take profits. It's the end of the year. They're seeing that the markets are starting to show some shifts. Part of that goes to the bond market. The yield curve, the yield curve has inverted, which is a sign usually of a coming recession. And swing traders are looking at that, and they're just taking profits. Nobody tries to time the market as a swing trader. You try to find the dip that you can take, and then take the profits as soon as you can, and keep your money safe. So that is the lead measure scoreboard. Now let's get into what you guys are probably most interested in, is the strategies, the issues that are surrounding the housing market right now, and the strategies that you can pursue in 2022 to take advantage of the different types of potential markets that we're going to be seeing. So for buyers in 2022, since you guys have kind of struggled over the last couple of years with trying to get in on the housing market, so the potential issues, or the issues that you have been dealing with and you're probably going to continue dealing with for at least a little while longer: home prices, down payments, cash buyers, bidding wars, and waiving contingency. So home prices is obvious. We all know that the house prices have been increasing dramatically. Some people feel like they've been priced out of the market. Down payments, especially as millennials, I know the millennial generation in particular is not in a great financial situation. I think the average millennial right now has about a $5,000 savings in their account. So if you put 2 of those together, you got $10,000 down payment, which it's not that much. Even at 3.5%, you're looking at maybe a $200,000 house, which is really hard to find right now, right? So down payments are an issue. Cash buyers, when you do go into the market, you are competing against cash buyers. So if you have financing, FHA loans, even conventional loans, at this point, when you go up against a cash buyer, it's tough to beat out, because cash buyers, for the most part, don't have to worry about appraisals or inspections as much. They can waive those if they need to. So you also have bidding wars that you're going up against, and then, like I just said, waiving contingencies. But not all is lost. There is hope. There are some strategies that you can use in 2022, even if these all ring true for you. If you are struggling with a down payment, if you are struggling with finding a home that's in your price range, or competing against cash buyers, there are a few strategies that you can use. and a few strategies if you have a great realtor that you want to use that they can do for you. Not all of them will do it, but here are some strategies. So, talk to your real estate agent, see if they can find off market properties. This is something that I do for my buyers, but I don't, I don't know how many agents will do it, but it is extra work for the agent to find these properties. But there are off market properties, and these usually come in the way of expired listings, which are listings that were on the market. They didn't sell for whatever reason. It could be that there were some issues with the house itself, inspection issues. It could be that the house was just overpriced. It could be that the seller didn't want to sell because they realize that they're going to be in the same market as you are. So when it comes to off-market properties, expires is a great list to go through, and your agent can go through an entire list of people. The nice thing about expires, for the most part, is that if the market starts to shift, which it is, it's starting to cool off. The A lot of the expired homeowners realize that they might have overpriced their home the first time that they listed it. And if you miss the 3 to 4 week window right when you list the home, for the most part, it's going to be tougher to sell for the price that you want. So when they realize that, okay, I might have overpriced, they're a little bit more willing to negotiate the price the second time around because they realize nobody wanted it the first time. They weren't willing to pay for it. Okay, we need to re-strategize our pricing strategy for the second listing. So calling up expireds, and that's a great way to get a home that you don't have to actually compete with other people for because it's not on the market. So if your agent can find a house that has expired, call them up if it fits your criteria. You might be able to negotiate a quick listing to sell right to you directly if you can negotiate a good price and terms between the homeowner and you as a buyer. Another good place to look is geo leads, which for agents, agents who are looking for listings, they usually will find a listing that has sold or was just listed in a neighborhood, and they will call around that neighborhood to see if any of the homeowners in that neighborhood know somebody who is looking to buy or sell, or maybe they are looking to buy or sell. When you do that, that's a way to potentially find a potential listing that's not on the market yet either. So if your agent knows exactly what you're looking for as far as criteria, they can ask the homeowner, hey, what are the features of your home? What's the condition, things like that, and they might be able to find you a home that hasn't even hit the market yet, um, or a homeowner who is looking to sell that doesn't have an agent yet, which is a win-win for both people. Another strategy especially for those who are looking to either invest in the future and build a real estate portfolio, or who just don't really have you don't have the money, the down payment, or the funding behind them to actually purchase a single family home. House hacking, which is essentially it's buying a duplex, triplex, or quadruplex, a multifamily home. You live in one side and you rent out the other. So this is a very a great way to start building your real estate portfolio if that's something you're interested in doing. But at the same time, it's also a way for buyers who might be struggling to get into a single family house to actually get a property where they're not paying rent anymore. They're also building some equity that they can use, and they're getting into the market where the person who is living in the other side or one of the other units or other units is able to help you pay for your mortgage. So you're now able to afford something that was more expensive. So for example, if you're only able to purchase a $200,000 house with where you are currently, you might be able to purchase a $400,000 duplex, have one side rented out, and with rent prices increasing right now, you can get a majority of, or at least half of, your mortgage paid off by the other side, which now they're helping you build equity in your home. And when you do go to sell, you'll have twice as much equity as you would have had if you had bought a single family house. And if you don't sell, you can always keep that, rent out both sides, and now you have cash flow coming in. And then you can use that cash flow. It does take some time to get it to the point where you have that cash flow that can be counted towards your mortgage. But when you do have that cash flow, you could count it towards your mortgage for the next purchase and upgrade your home to a single family home. Down payment assistance. There's lots of programs out there. There are grants specifically for your state, even specifically for your county. and most people do qualify for at least one of the programs or grants. There are also some other ways you can get gifts given to you from family members. So there's a lot of different ways to do that, but that's another strategy. Also, all cash financing offers. So this is something that I've talked about in one of my previous videos, but there are mortgage programs out there where you apply for financing, and as long as you have good enough credit and you're in a good enough situation financially, you can have that mortgage lender actually write a full price, or whatever your price that you want to put in. They can write an offer and it can be put in as all cash. So now, even though it's financing, what happens is the lender puts in the contract. They pay for the house with their cash offer, and when they own it, they roll it over, they transfer it into your name, and they roll that into a mortgage. So even though it technically is financing, the way it's presented to a seller is an all cash offer. So that makes you be able to compete with other all cash buyers. And then lastly, this is a little bit tougher to find, but it is a strategy you can use if you can find it. There are lease to own properties where you end up leasing for a certain period of time, and within that time limit that you negotiate with the seller, you have the option to purchase the home from them, which could happen a couple of years down the road, or it could happen within a couple of months. It would all depend on how you negotiated it. So those are some really good strategies for buyers. And I don't want to leave everybody else hanging, but if you do have questions on any of these things, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help and answer any questions you have. Sellers in 2022. So the biggest issue with sellers that we've seen over the last 2 years is, one, there's really nowhere for them to go, right? Because when you sell, now you're entering back into the same market that you just sold in. So even though you're selling high, you're also going to have to buy high, and you're going to also have to compete with other buyers who may be all cash. So you're going to be back in the same situation as what I just went through with buyers. So you'll be entering a competitive market and then competing with all cash buyers as well. But there are some things that you can do as sellers, because the market still is a seller's market. You still have quite a bit of leverage that you can use to strategize how you're going to make this happen and make this transition in 2022. So some of these strategies include a leaseback or seller contingencies, where you cannot close on the property without your home selling. So if you want to put in an offer and then list your house, because we know that houses right now are selling quicker than we can actually buy houses, right? There's a lot more buyers than sellers. So you can actually go look for homes, find a home that you want to put an offer in, put the offer in, and with that offer, put in the contingency that your house has to sell, which the likelihood of it happening is going to be pretty high. The only thing that might it might limit what sellers will actually accept that offer, because they might have better offers where there's not a contingency like that. But it is a potential strategy that you can use. The other one is a leaseback, where when you do sell the house, you negotiate a leaseback from that buyer, that when you close, you can still live there while you search for a home. You would have to negotiate how long that lease is good for. Some buyers are in the position, especially if they're a cash buyer, where they can lease back that home to you at no cost, because they'll float the mortgage on their end, because they really want the home that bad, where they'll let you stay there for free up to a certain time period. And this is a strategy I've used with some of my buyers and sellers, and it has worked great in this market. So those are two quick contingency types of strategies. Also, off-market properties, as I mentioned, for the buyers. You can have your agent look for off-market properties that people aren't competing for right now. Moving to a less in-demand area, especially if you're moving to an area where it's not super hot. If you're moving to an area that has more land, or just doesn't have the same demand as where you're living right now, it's probably easier to buy in that area, and you'll probably have a much easier time getting that after you sell. And the sellers will probably be more likely to negotiate with you over these types of contingencies or leaseback scenarios. You could also rent your current home if you have the ability to. You can probably just buy the house and then rent that out as a cash flow that could help you pay for, the increased price on your new mortgage. That's going to be limited to people who are in a financial position to do so. 1031 exchanges or all cash financing, as I mentioned in the buyer section, you can also apply for a all cash financing loan where they put in the offer for all cash and then they roll it into a mortgage for you afterwards. You could also do a 1031 exchange, which to sellers looks very similar to an all cash deal because you already sold it. You have to buy something within a certain period of time, so they know that time is of the essence. You're serious about buying, and it's going to go through because you've already sold the home. And then rent temporarily. So this is something I know a lot of sellers don't want to do, but you have to look at the give and take. If you think the market is going to be shifting the other way to where it's going to become a buyer's market, renting temporarily could give you that high price, be able to sell for that high price that you wanted. And you'll have to, bide your time and use a little bit of that money for rental, but you might be able to, on the other end, buy something for much less than what you sold your house for. And it could be, of equal or greater value. All right, moving on to the investors in 2022. So for investors, I mean, this is kind of like the holy grail of markets for you. There's really not that many issues for investors, especially if you have the cash, or even are already stable enough where you have your own property and you're just looking to pick up something else. The things you really need to look at, obviously, are just going to be cap rates, the COC, the cash on cash returns, cash flow, and inflation. And in this case, in these markets, inflation as an investor works in your benefit because you're taking out a loan at really low interest rates. And as inflation goes, it's getting cheaper for you to pay back that money because there's more money. You're getting more money, even though even though the power of that dollar is less, you're paying it back with more money. So, and your interest rate's not changing. So you're actually making out all the way around. You're getting cash flow, you're getting your cap rates, your inflation, and you're probably getting appreciation too with the way the market is right now. So strategies for you, I mean, 1031 exchanges are no-brainers for most people. House hacking, if you're new to investing or just starting out in investing, house hacking is a great method to do it. Buy a duplex or a multifamily, live in one unit, rent out the others, and let them pay for your mortgage. You do have to make sure you have all your numbers figured out. If you're an investor, right? Numbers are the biggest thing. Cash flow's got to make sense. Cap rate's got to make sense. And you also have to include a lot of things that people don't think about: maintenance costs, your capital expenditures, your bigger expenses, your vacancy rates, and then if you have property management, those costs as well. Another method, the BRRR method or the BRRR method, buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. You just keep doing that, and it's almost like a turnover. You keep upgrading you keep buying more properties, and you're refinancing out to buy another property. So you just keep doing that back and forth. FHA loans right now, the rates are still low. If you can get an FHA loan for 3.5%, you're able to really leverage that 3.5% to increase your cap rates on your investments. And then the 203K, 203B loans. So those are loans that you can get, especially if it's a distressed home or a property that needs a lot of work. There are some properties that do qualify for these loans, part of the HUD loans, where you can actually buy a distressed home for a really reasonable price. But the problem is you got to put the work in. So what happens with these loans is you buy a property that needs repairs, you get a HUD approved contractor to come in, they'll give you a quote, and then they will do all the work. And by the time you're done, you roll in the costs of all of that for the purchase of the home and the rehab. You roll that all into your mortgage. It does usually require you to have more cash or money up front because you will need to put down, it depends on the property, but you probably will need to put more money down up front. If you're in the situation as an investor where you have cash or are able to get other people to come into a deal with you, that's ideal, and you'll be able to get the appreciated value and the value at the end after you've rehabbed it with a loan. So it's all done through the bank where you can leverage their money instead of your own. Well, that's this week's housing market update. And as we ring in the new year, I expect we will see the Santa rally die down and a more accurate picture of how the markets will shape up for the year. So start thinking about those scenarios I covered today and make a plan for yourself as to how you might be able to take advantage of whatever changes come our way in the new year. And if you have questions about your specific situation, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please hit that thumbs up button to let me know, and don't forget to subscribe and click the bell for more videos every week like real estate tips, new listings, things to do, and more. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to give me a call or send me a text at 239-310-5478. And if you prefer email, you can send one to rick@swflrelocationteam.com. Don't forget to register on my site to get access to loads of exclusive tools, data, and content like foreclosure and open house lists, buyer and seller guides, calculators, and access to the Southwest Florida MLS. Thanks again for watching to the end, and I hope to see you next week.